This is the Initiates Podcast. Here, we create space to explore the path of initiation as we reawaken the forgotten wisdom that resides within us all. I am your host and guide, Natalie Grace. Join me every Thursday for an enlightening exploration of contemporary spirituality. It's my honour to journey with you. Welcome back, my friends. Happy Equinox, belated Equinox. Happy astrological new year. Happy Aries season. Happy new moon. There's a lot going on with the energies at the moment. It's a really exciting time, I think. There's a lot of weight in the energy field right now, but it's not this like heavy, dense weight. It's the weight of something building, I feel like, something exciting building. The weight of possibility, perhaps, of new hope, of optimism, which is really cool. Sometimes that can feel light, but for me right now, as I'm speaking, it actually feels like it has some density, which to me makes it feel more real, more grounded, more weighted in our reality, which is pretty cool. I wonder how that resonates with you. I am going to be sharing a channeled equinox message for you today. It was the equinox a couple of days ago, and I wasn't planning on doing a channeling. I've kind of taken a little break from my usual schedule of live streaming around these events, but I felt called to. I was in the cabin again, and I went outside and I just, wanted to be looking at the stars on the evening of the equinox. And like I said, it wasn't planned. I was actually doing a lot of work that evening and I needed some quiet space, but the call of the stars was just too great. So I went and immersed myself in the darkness of the nighttime and watched the sky, watched the trees being lit up by the faint starlight. It's been kind of cloudy where I live this week. And I was able to sit in the energy of the stillness, which is just beautiful. I've spoken about this. If you followed me for a little while over at Crystal Aura Tarot, I've channeled a few equinox messages now since I began streaming. And it always talks about the sacred harmony, the sacred peace that exists in the middle space, the equilibrium, the center point of all is that the equinox teaches us about. And I got to witness that and it was beautiful. The calm stillness where you can just pause and take in what is rather than what was or what's to come. And so I spent some time outside and then I decided to come inside and I'm, studying tarot at the moment. I'm putting together my tarot courses, tarot books, tarot cards all over the place, but I haven't actually been reading much for myself lately. And so I felt called to just pick a card and see what the theme was for that moment. And of course, it was a magical message from the tarot. It always is. One of the joys and surprises of tarot once you get into it is just how not only accurate in representing the energy of the moment, it can be so literal in that accuracy, which is pretty incredible and mind-blowing so often. It's also how funny the tarot can be. At least the decks that I work with have quite a sharp sense of humor, and it's really lovely to connect with your deck on a deep level because you start to understand the personality of the energy that's held within that deck. And the deck, unless it's been gifted to you from a long line of wise women that might be holding a lot of the different energies of those previous owners, If the deck has just been yours, well, it's going to be holding your energy and what is that fragment of you that it wants to reflect back. And so this probably also evolves as you go on with tarot, and people work with different decks for different reasons. They might not use their regular daily card pull deck to do their shadow work, for instance. They might want something with different kind of artwork or a different feeling when they're working with that deck. But so far, my decks that I work with have a very sharp and funny sense of humor, which I appreciate. And I guess that's a mirror to my own self. But yeah, of course, the card that comes for the equinox is the Two of Pentacles. If you're familiar with this card, you'll know why this made me laugh. It literally displays the figure 8 symbol, which to me is what represents the seasonal cycles, the swings, the expansion and contraction between the solstice and the equinox being the center point. If you aren't familiar with this card, the traditional illustration of this card, I will pop a photo of this card in the show notes for you so you can check it out. But it made me laugh because it was such a literal representation of the energy of that moment, the equinox, that moment of stillness in that center point of equilibrium, that moment of harmony. So when I cut the deck and that's what was there, I was like, of course, that's the card. That's how the tarot works. But then I also felt compelled to sit down with my notebook and see what flowed out. So I did some automatic writing and the message was beautiful. It's a little bit different from my previous equinox messages, actually. It was a bit more direct and a bit more grounded, I want to say. A lot of the time it's more of an elevated perspective because from the middle space you can gain clarity as if you have been elevated to a bird's eye view almost. In that center point between the extremes of each side of the pole, we gain clarity. So yeah, I'm excited to share this with you guys. And so I wasn't sure what to do with this message. I reflected on it on my own and I thought it was beautiful. I shared it in conversation with a couple of people, but I really felt like it would be good to share on the podcast here, to recite it for you all, because I know you appreciate my channeled messages. They hold a lot of wisdom and they come from, yes, my higher self, but I think it's the highest collective self, the wisdom that we all share. That's where these words come from. I just put them onto paper. And also because, yes, the moment of the equinox has passed, and some people really like to have these messages to receive them before that moment so that it can inform their reflection at that moment and their ritual at that moment, that exact moment. But the way I see these seasonal markers is that they are teachers and they hold a lesson. So yes, the moment calls us into a time of pause to reflect, but it's to reflect on the lesson that it is there to teach us for that season that we can put into our tool belt, into our library of lessons and refer back to in the future. So this lesson is definitely applicable a few days later if you're listening when this podcast episode comes out, or even beyond, whenever it is that you come to this episode. This lesson that we've received at this particular equinox, whether you're in the southern hemisphere like me and experiencing the autumnal equinox, or you're in the northern hemisphere and experiencing the vernal or spring equinox, that's irrelevant, because we all come together to meet in this time of sacred pause no matter where we are. But also on the scale of time, we've received this lesson. We can't unknow something once we know it. So it will remain relevant and applicable and useful to you whenever it is you listen to this message. Okay, let's journey. So in my journal, it's actually a reflection, this message, on the card. And then the Equinox message, the wisdom of the Equinox, flowed out after I'd kind of decoded the message in the card. So I'm actually first going to talk you through what I see in the card and the first reflections that lead into the channeled message. And so I'm going to take you through my process of looking at the tarot because I consume the symbols of the cards. I perceive the symbols of the cards. The messages speak to me through the symbols of the cards. And I will kind of look at all the symbols, and I'm describing this to you in detail so you can understand where this message comes from, how these intuitive messages land with me. So let me set the scene, and this is quite appropriate given that a lot of people describe this particular card. There's a few others in the deck as well as a scene card. It kind of has a bit of a theatrical feel, as if the character in this card is acting on a stage with the scenery behind playing out. We have one character in this card. He is a young man and he holds 2 pentacles, one in each hand. The pentacle in his right hand, he's holding it up at about shoulder level with his hand bent to the right. And then we have in his left hand, which is more outstretched, a pentacle at about waist level. And he looks like he's balancing these 2 coins, and that it's quite it takes a little bit of effort to keep these coins in balance. He's looking like he's having to shift his weight between his 2 feet in order to maintain the balance of these 2 coins. And what connects these 2 coins is a figure 8. There is a green band that loops around these coins, creating a figure 8, quite a large loop. So you see this really incredible, important symbol at the very forefront, the kind of frontal plane of this card. And you see very close to that, this young man dancing to keep these 2 coins in balance. He is wearing a lot of red and orange. He has a very interesting pointy hat on. Kind of like, it looks like a cone, but it's kind of how I imagine you put a pyramid on your head to kind of direct energy. And behind him in this scenery, this background scenery, is a stormy sea. Well, I wouldn't call it stormy actually. It's rough sea. It's very choppy, and it's not little wave choppy. It's like big, huge hills are forming in the sea. But it doesn't look rough. It looks challenging, but it doesn't look rough. Like it's very possible to balance, like it's very possible to ride these waves. And we know that it's not stormy as well because the sky is blue, which for me is always a positive symbol in the tarot. If there's a blue sky, there's clarity there. So even though the seas are challenging at the moment, they have what looks like mountains forming, hills forming in them. And there's a boat and a bigger sail ship sitting on these waves. They don't necessarily look like they're in danger. They look well equipped to handle that kind of ebb and flow. There's a very distinct ebb and flow that's illustrated in this card. Now, I must say this card actually appeared reversed, and that's really important with how I perceive the message. Now, when I got this card, normally I sit with a card and I meditate with the card and I ask for the symbol that wants to be seen to appear, and that will be the most important symbol, or there might be a couple of them or even 3 in the card for that particular reading that want to tell me a story. But for this one, it wasn't really that. It was more the whole card, which is rare for me actually. Now, the significance of the pentacle and the 2. So the 2, and so the 2 of Pentacles, it's the second card of the Minor Arcana, which is the more personal aspect of the tarot. It's not about the outside world projecting its energies onto you. It's more messages about the journey of the inner self. And so this is the 2. It's at the, beginning of the journey through the suit of the pentacles. And 2 represents polarity. It represents duality. It represents partnerships. It represents balance. So 2 tells a tale. And then if we look at the pentacles, the coins, they represent the material, the mundane. Obviously, coins represent money, but they represent all that we manifest in our physical reality, not just that cash. For me, it's quite significant that the material realm also includes the flesh of our bodies, our physical selves. I don't hear so many tarot readers perceiving the messages from the pentacles to be about the body very much. I wish I heard it more, honestly, but in the way I read, these messages come up a lot pertaining to the body rather than, or more so than money or finances. So I want to I just want to share that with you, because it might, if you work with tarot, it might help inform a refreshed way of looking at some of the messages that come through when pentacles appear. Okay, so I set the scene. We've got this young guy on, say, a pier or at the edge of some kind of walkway near a sea that's quite wavy, and he is doing a dance to balance his 2 coins. As I mentioned, this card appeared reversed, so I literally took my pen and started writing in my journal. What is the meaning of the appearance of this card? Why has this card appeared? And here's what I wrote down. It's representing resistance, inflexibility to go with the natural flow, to move with the natural cycles, an unwillingness to be fluid, resistance to what is, a need to control how time moves, control outcomes, distrust, unease around the natural rhythm. We have judgment about time moving too slow or too fast. And it didn't take long. That's literally what I jotted down. And then all of a sudden the message arrived. So let's do the little meditation bell and get ready for this message. We are creatures of nature. We are flesh. We are animals with a human consciousness. We have forgotten what we are. We think we're smarter than those creatures lower than us on the food chain. We think we know better than our earth. But she controls our physical reality. She creates the wind, the waves, the density. We also create this reality, but only because we are of her. We are fragments of our Creator. We must remember what we are, that we are of the earth, that we must move with her, not against her, that we hold only a fragment of her intelligence, her creativity, her resilience, her power, that we are animals, that we must move with her seasons, that we must embrace all her creatures as our family, our brothers, our sisters, our community, our friends, our neighbours, that we must honour her balance, because balance is divinity. And that's the message. It was quite simple and quite direct, but I found it to be quite profound when I sat with it, because it spoke of balance, but it was a lot to do with our need to control the physical space we live in, and the need to control time, or knowing that we can't control time, but that we want to, we believe we can do it anyway, and we feel so suspicious, so distrustful, so put out by time. I know I've reflected on this a lot. I think only last week I was talking about feeling time slipping from me. But how is this even possible? Time just is. Time moves. Even if we don't believe our measurement of time is entirely accurate or even relevant anymore, it's kind of, it doesn't really matter. We can anchor into the natural movement of time, which we mark in this physical reality through the change of seasons and through the events of the balance of light and dark, such as the solstices and the equinoxes. They are the most accurate clock, yet we prefer the clock on the phone or the wall. And this clock was designed to work for us. I guess we inherently know this. However, if it doesn't work for us the way we want or expect, or the way we've been programmed to believe in it, it can make us feel bad. You know, I felt bad, like time was slipping away. I wasn't getting enough done. But does nature experience that? Does nature feel bad when it moves through the season and it hasn't had the best crop or harvest? This year where I live, summer has been very mild, and it's affected the crops that I grow in my garden. So the apples have been small and kind of blighted. And I wonder, do the trees feel bad for that? Do they want time to move faster or slower? I'm not sure. Does my cat? Do the birds? Maybe they do, but maybe they don't. Maybe they don't think about these things because they accept time as a natural process that cannot be controlled or perhaps even understood. But we don't think that way. We hold a different consciousness to other creatures here. We would describe that as a higher intelligence, but I don't really think that way. I don't think it's necessarily more intelligent to feel bad about the most natural movement that exists in our world, which is the shift between light and dark that we experience every day. So I think the message was really beautiful in reflecting on that disconnection we have from our natural selves and our willingness, our eagerness to detach from the fact that in many ways we are still animals, that we are flesh of this planet that's not really that different to many other mammals that exist here. We also, I think, you know, at that top of the food chain, that reference gives us a false perception of our intelligence. We think we are smarter than the earth, and look at what the earth's created, and the earth existed before we were here and will exist after we're gone. And the earth is so highly intelligent, highly creative, as the note said, highly resilient, which is really important when we're talking about things like the effects of our behaviors on the health of this planet. The earth, nature, our nature that we are so detached from is more resilient, more creative, more intelligent than we are. And it's not that we even forget this, we don't want to believe it. I don't know what that's about. We have so much to learn from those beings and creatures and consciousness that are more intelligent, that hold more wisdom, more knowledge than we do. Yet we don't want to believe that we're not the smartest people in the room or the universe. I also love that the message reflected on the fact that we are so intelligent and creative and resilient because we are fragments of the Creator. And if we're fragments of the Creator, of course we would hold some of those qualities. So going back to this tarot card, the feelings that I got when I first looked at it, given that I was pulling it for the message of the equinox, was because it was reversed. We were being too rigid. This rigidity felt very strong in me, that we are so unwilling to move flexibly with agility, with the natural seasons, with the natural procession of time that exists here, that is actually so gentle and so natural and so loving. It's so predictable. Time is actually extremely predictable, which I think is a lovely gift to us that perhaps we neglect to appreciate or understand when we've created all these things we're supposed to do, framed around time, our calendars, the hours of the day. But all we have to do is look around and see how much harmony can be created each and every season. And no season is perfect. We have flood, we have drought, we have all kinds of changing weather patterns, and it's not supposed to stay the same because that's stagnation. We need constant fluid movement. And that's represented in this card with this moving of the water, this constant ebb and flow, up and down. It's not supposed to stay flat, and we would think of a beautiful flat sea having no challenges, having nothing to overcome. That would create the blue sky. But actually, in order to have harmony, in order to be able to get to this beautiful sacred center point at the equinox, we have to go through the extremes of the polarity of the solstices. So this is the natural order. This is the natural clock. And what if we actually just lent into the beauty of that and saw it as an extension of us rather than something separate from us? Perhaps it's the highest dimension of us reflected in our reality. And so just sharing these words with you now, I've gained some wisdom. The tarot has been such an incredible teacher for me. I've learned so much. I've gained so much new insight, especially through understanding, unpeeling the layers of understanding with the symbols. They are so multidimensional. They have so much layered meaning. They themselves hold infinite meaning. And the symbol of this figure 8, the symbol of infinity, is a clock. It's nature's clock. It symbolically shows us, marks the passing of time, and time is infinite as far as we know. And the infinity exists because of the order held within it, which is visualized by these intersecting loop. The figure 8, I should probably learn what the technical name for the symbol is, but I'm like, wow, that's profound. That symbol is a clock. That's all we need to measure time. And I'm thinking I'm so smart. Just like I was saying before, wow, what high intelligence I hold. But I'm reminded then of our earlier clock. Before our clocks had hands and numbers, we had the hourglass. The hourglass is shaped. It's a 3-dimensional formation of the infinity symbol, and it's used to contain infinity to help us understand the passing of time. How cool is that? All of this stuff is always so basic when we have the realization, when that realization arrives. This applies to everything I share on this podcast. I don't believe that I'm the first person to think of anything I talk about. All the wisdom is already held. We're just remembering, we're just reawakening, we're just uncovering. And it's such a wonderful, magical process. So thank you. Thank you so much for allowing me to have this space where we can unravel these layers of meaning together. So the message to take with us after this solstice is to overcome this program of distrust around time, to reject that program, to lose the resistance, to become more fluid and flexible and agile in our approach to time specifically, but also to our own selves as creatures of this planet, of flesh and blood, to become more accepting of our nature as animals. Yeah, we're highly intelligent, conscious creatures, but we're still animals. So why do we reject that? Why is that so hard to accept? It's something to ponder. To lose that distrust of the natural rhythm and to just accept it, that's what it is. And perhaps when we can accept how time moves in its most natural way without our projections, our formats, our systems constraining it, that we'll actually be able to experience more harmony, perhaps greater production, perhaps more creativity, more fulfillment, more alignment, and just a willingness to move our feet. Everything in this world is always moving. Our planet's always moving. And we must get better at moving with it. We are all part of this beautiful sacred dance. And while we're preoccupied with keeping everything afloat, taking care of all of our mundane administration, we can easily forget this. And we need to be reminded that that's a really important part of being human, of being an adult. We have responsibilities that we need to manage and make sure we do a good job with, but that is made much harder when we're not fluid and we're not enjoying what we're doing. We're not having any fun. I hope that you have enjoyed this message. I hope that you had a beautiful equinox and that you were also able to take time for some reflection and receive some lovely wisdom from our beautiful earth, the sun, the moon, and the stars. Thank you for sharing this lesson with me, and I will talk to you next week. Peace, love, and harmony to you all.